Many thanks for staying with us, everyone. Let's get started, shall we? The relationship between the National Assembly and the executive arms of government is perhaps not the best anyone will envisage, especially because the ruling APC controls both institutions of government. So you expect a better working relationship. With the stern stance of the Senate on the non-confirmation of Mr. Ibrahim Magu and his retainership as the top EFCC job, and the subsequent marching order on the presidency not to get any of the nominees confirmed, that on one hand, the frequent summoning of executive officials and the disagreements over the roles in the budget brings to mind that all is not well, and perhaps the fear that governance will suffer, especially when we see these heavyweights go to political war. Let's get talking tonight, shall we, everyone? Joining me is an eloquent and very influential member of the National Assembly in Nigeria's Parliament, Senator representing Abia South constituency, Senator Yinaya Abaribe, joins me from our Abuja studio. Many thanks, Senator, for coming on the program. Let me quickly ask you this. Let me begin by asking you to clarify the motion which you move, perhaps signifying that there is a vacuum in government. Are you insinuating that Senator Bukola Saraki took over as acting president?
Always a pleasure to speak with you, Shehu. That was just a sarcastic statement that I made, and it was simply to cool down tensions because everybody was ratcheting up tensions to say, there was this whole hula baloo between the executive and the legislature, and I kind of stood up and said to them, wait a minute, who are we talking to here? You know, and it was blown out of proportion. Nobody envisages that there will be a transfer of power or something like that. It's not in the Constitution anyway.
It's interesting the way you, a lot of people know your profile as someone who has experience in communication and of being at the state government too also. But let me quickly quote you. You did say on the floor, you did say, and I quote now, as of today, there is nobody who is the head of government. The law and the procedure state that you cannot have a vacuum. The acting president is out of the country and there is a vacuum. In the real sense, if you take satire and sarcasm away from it, in the real sense, if the acting president is not in the country, would there be a vacuum?
No, there won't be a vacuum. The vacuum will be created only if there is no clear line of succession, and I think that we have that.
All seem not to be well, especially when it comes to confirmation. What exactly do you think it's the grounds of the senators with the way and manner the executive arm of government has handled the issue of Mr. Ibrahim Magu?
I think that when we speak about this issue, it's necessary for us to go back to understand the point where this whole issue started. It started from the confirmation of Mr. Magu as a result of a request by Mr. President for his confirmation. And that is in keeping with the law that established the EFCC, the commission. And in keeping with that, there were, if you remember, there were two different times that it happened. The very first one, we didn't have to subject him to any discussion because at the very first time he came to the Senate for confirmation, we got a letter from the DSS. By the way, whenever we have to confirm anybody, one of the requirements is to have a security screening, and it's done by DSS. And DSS brought a letter stating that he had an integrity challenge. And we now invited him in with deference to his office and said to him, in view of this letter and whatever we have seen, I think we should defer your confirmation today at a later time, and we sent everything back to the executive. And the reason why we sent it back was that we couldn't understand how an arm of government that is supposed to do security screening will send a letter to the Senate stating clearly that the person that we want to screen is not qualified to be screened. And we waited for the response from the presidency. And when the presidency now sent back Mr. Magu for the next level of screening, the same DSS still wrote to say that they stood by its own previous letter. In other words, there was infighting within the presidency. There was a problem from the executive itself. And we were very surprised after we had declined confirmation of Mr. Magu, who incidentally is my very good friend. And I was one of those who worked to talk to most of our members to be able to make his confirmation positive. And we were surprised that what we now got from the executive was not an inward look at themselves to see how would they send a nominee, and at the same time also send a letter saying that that nominee was not qualified. Rather than do that, all we now had was a lot of very, very negative vituperations against senators. And we were called all manners of names. And everybody was saying, oh, these people are all corrupt, thieves, corruption fighting back, all that type of thing. But everybody stayed away from that fact that it was the same executive that came back to us to say, do not confirm Mr. Magu. So this was a problem within the executive itself that they ought to have resolved before they came to the floor. Now, after that point, what we now got subsequently was a statement credited to the acting president to the effect that they do not have to even subject anybody to the confirmation of the Senate on the basis of Section 171, I think for the 171D or so. Now, that is not our problem. Our problem was this. If the commission as EFCC was established by law and has that provision, and other commissions were also established by law and have similar provisions, the NDDC, the NERC, and other commissions, and you send us a letter asking us to confirm NDDC, you send us a letter asking us to confirm NERC, they are both commissions, they're all commissions. Then you turn around, and when it comes to the matter of EFCC, you tell us, no, under Section 171, you don't even have a right. And so we felt that there is absolutely no need to continue this gross violation of the Constitution. I've heard and I've listened to so many lawyers come here and say all manners of things and try to justify, with all due respect, being a lawmaker, we know one thing. The executive is guided by Section 5. If you check 5.1b, it says that the president, acting as himself or through the vice president or the ministers, must execute all laws passed by the National Assembly. It didn't say some. It didn't say so. Our worry today is we don't understand why we have a situation where the executive will decide to pick and choose which law to obey. It is this brazen breach of rule of law that is the cause of most of the fundamental problems we have today. And so that is why we now said, well, why don't you? Because as far as we are concerned, If you say that the EFCC as a commission, you don't need to subject it to us, no problem. Why do you want to subject NEC to us? It's the same commission. Why do you want to subject NDDC to us? It's still commission. Why do you want to bring any other commission or any other thing to us and say that? You might as well say, well, Section 171 says nobody should come or anything that is extra ministerial, because all of them are extra ministerial in one way or the other.
Okay.
And I also heard some people come here and say,
okay, Senator, because we just a moment.
We ought to.
Okay, we need to, because we need to go on break. I will allow you to conclude on that, but we need to go on break now. But when we return, Senator Inaya Baribe is still with us, and it will be talking more on this, the issue of the budget, and what now looks like a big row between the executive and the legislature. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.